What's up guys? Let's talk about the item set meta in regards to PvP. It's as a broad category, people ask me a lot about it. How would you build this champion and what item sets use on your reviver and is this nuker too fast and so on. These kind of questions people often ask about a lot, and I'm gonna do an updated not live arena, just general PvP item set tier list probably at some point this week. But I kind of wanted to do a different type of video, kind of highlighting something that is very big deal right now in the PvP landscape that many people might have kind of missed and not realized just yet. And I'm sure the big boy accounts, the top players in top clans, they are well aware of it, but it's not like any of them are making videos about it, and even if they were making videos, they wouldn't like share their secret builds and tactics. So we're gonna talk about something that kind of changed recently, and if we quickly take a look at the top 30 of this week's Platinum Arena reset, this is the meta that it has been for, well, it has changed a little bit, but let's say that it has been pretty much like this ever since the release of White King Narsus. And we basically went away from style meta with Taras, Maritzka, UDK and Sifi being like the main team that people basically ran if you had those champions, and then they had some few other variations of it, but basically that team was ran by everybody. Now it's a lot more speed oriented meta. Every single team has a lockout, sometimes even 2 or 3, and people are not going for super tanky teams anymore with double reviver or so on. Many teams don't even have any revivers unless you count Maritzka, and some don't even have that at all. Instead, people are running very hyper aggressive teams with like multiple lockouts and fast champions and like strong nukers. And how can you build around that, and how should you build those teams? Well, the big thing that changed the meta is the fact that White King Narsus ignores the passives that many champions have that mitigate damage, like Dats's passive that reduces all damage taken by 25%. Very good passive. Used to be a big deal. All AoE damage reduced by 25%. Huge deal, but stuff like this isn't viable anymore. You can't be tanky enough to survive the Narsus damage that way. People sometimes used to stack damage mitigation, especially if we go a couple years back. You would often see both Duchess and Ursuka in the same team, and you might have like Guardian sets and somebody is in Bulwark Mastery and so on. People went really heavily in damage mitigation. In this meta, you can't do that. It kind of went a little bit away with Taras and Maritzka, because that was just much better than going with Duchess and Ursuka and that style of team. But instead, like I said, we have these hyper aggressive teams and hyper aggressive defense teams. And since you can run Narsus against any kind of these tanky champions that have passives that mitigate damage, such as Negret. Negret is another good example that Narsus is gonna get double damage against shield and strengthen, and he's also gonna ignore the shields, and that obviously makes bolster set, for instance, completely worthless. You used to have at least one bolster set in every single team in Classic Arena. Right now, nobody's building shield because you can't, or shield or bolster, because you can't mitigate any damage that way, and you can't mitigate it with passives. By the way, I wouldn't say that bolster and shield are still pretty good for tag team arena and live arena, but against Narsus they just suck, and that kind of inherently makes them not relevant in Classic Arena. So what can you do if you don't have 460 speed Grixia or Armans or whatever, and like how should you build your champions against those types of teams when you can't run bolster, and if you're not ridiculously fast, and even if you were, what should you do? Well, the main thing that everybody is running that shouldn't really come as a surprise is that you're seeing tons of stoneskin. Most of the nukers are in 4-piece stoneskin. You will see usually the revivers like Galatir and Maritzka and so on. Those are gonna be in 6-piece stoneskin very often. And maybe there's like 1 or 2 champions in a team that are not in stoneskin. Very often though, you will find every single champion in that team in stoneskin. And it's especially emboldened by the fact, like you can see my Duchess for instance is still in 4-piece stoneskin and 4-piece bolster because of the accessories. And even though I'm not using her in Classic Arena. And then for instance, my Ankora is in 6-piece stoneskin and 2-piece frostbite because we have the stoneskin accessories. And yeah, that's the meta. Stoneskin, when you can get the 6-piece with any 2-piece set that you want, that's the go-to strategy right now. Obviously, you can get bombed if you use stoneskin. That's why you want to have lots of polymorph, and you might consider having something like immunity UDK or having Maritzka passive and so on. There's some ways to deal with the bombs, but now we kind of have more options that you can get any 2-piece set you want, basically. I mean, not really, but kind of. And yeah, so if you're gonna build something like, let's say Galatir or Maritzka, what kind of 2-piece sets would you care about? I mean, definitely it depends on your gear, and let's say that you have really tanky speed 2-piece set, then definitely build your champions in that set as well, like depending what you have. But there's a couple like kind of hidden OP item sets that I want to talk about here. And yeah, I know some people are gonna get triggered that I mention Frostbite, but Frostbite is gonna be one of these sets, and let me explain to you why Frostbite is so OP 2-piece set. Especially now. It wasn't in the previous meta, now it makes sense again. Let me explain. I just went through all of that history about why damage mitigation is not relevant in like raid PvP anymore. But Frostbite has this interesting effect. It's exactly like polymorph. For the practical purposes, think Frostbite exactly like polymorph. If you get hit by attack, there's a 15% chance that the enemy might get frozen. And if they get frozen, their skill gets interrupted. So let's say that Ankora is the first champion in my party, and enemy champion does an AoE attack. Let's say that enemy Crixia, which for the purpose of this argument is not in like immunity or stoneskin, so she can get frozen. And Ankora is the first champion in my party. If Crixia does her lockout and she gets frozen by Ankora, it completely cancels that skill. Other people don't get hit by the AoE attack, and they don't get locked out, or they don't take damage or whatever effects that champion would do. This is a massive deal. And this wasn't super popular like a while ago, because people used to run a lot of like Duchess and immunity champions in offense. But right now, actually, a lot of the speed teams, let's say that they're using like a bomb team with Arbiter, they're not gonna have immunity. Let's say that they're running a speed team with Georgid. They might not have Arbiter, they might have like Shu Chen, or they might have Mikage instead of her, but very likely they're not gonna have immunity. Like Necret is gonna be liability if you run it against Narsus, and it's not very popular in the meta. You can certainly run Necret, and some people sometimes use her, but people are not using a lot of immunity in offense. And now you might say that, hey, since White King Narsus is super popular, and White Queen Ankora does actually remove the debuffs and protects your Narsus from freeze, isn't this completely pointless since Narsus is the meta, like I just said? Well, a lot of those teams don't really use Ankora in offense. I would actually say that the best teams don't use Ankora at all, in offense at least, and often in those, it's like 50-50, that in those Narsus defense teams, half of them have Ankora and half of them don't have it, but the offense teams with Narsus don't usually run Ankora. If they are like lesser accounts like mine, they often do it, but the top teams, they are not gonna run it. They have other things that they rather put in that team. And often, if you just happen to get the Frostbite proc at the right time, that can literally win you the fight. It might protect your team from Grixia lockout, or it might protect your team from Narsus damage or whoever, but since you can get this as a 2-piece set, I would definitely put that in your view, and kind of this is something that is kind of controversial. A lot of people hate the set. The set never has been insanely popular, but I used to be kind of famous for using this set, and I used to get so much DMs about it. I wasn't using it in a while just because it didn't fit the meta, but now Frostbite set is relevant again, and you definitely want to consider this one. So there's two more other like Eden OP sets. Okay, so the other one is gonna be Defiant. By the way, these are not in order, and I'm gonna make a PvP item set tier list soon. So why is Defiant good? Well, again, the same reason. Nothing is really mitigating the Narsus damage, because he ignores the passives and shields and strength and so on. But there's some things he doesn't ignore, like defense buff, and one of those things is also the Defiant set. That still protects. If we quickly look at the verbiage on White King Narsus, give me a sec. Damage inflicted by this skill cannot be decreased by enemy passive skills or masteries, blah blah blah, but that means that item sets can still mitigate the damage, and obviously since, actually I can show you, I have my UDK in 2-piece Defiant set, but obviously since you can get your champion in 6-piece stoneskin and 2-piece Defiant, this is pretty big deal. You can get 15% AoE damage mitigation with just 2-piece set bonus, and you also get some defense. And of course, Defiant is like a paid set, so you might not want to buy those torch passes. I haven't been doing that either, but I have been buying Bolster, and I'm gonna switch it up now. But it's an item set people kind of... it never got popular, but right now in this meta it makes a lot of sense, and you might want to consider it. Now, obviously, all damage is not gonna be AoE, so it's not gonna be relevant against every hit. I mean, you still do single target damage on Narsus A1 and A3, but it's very relevant and big deal and something to consider. I would also note that, let's say that you don't have stoneskin, or you don't want to build your champion in stoneskin, this is an alternative that you could consider. You could even have multiple of these sets instead of just 2-piece like I have with 6-piece stoneskin. You could have 4-piece stoneskin and 4-piece Defiant, or you could just go full Defiant or some other set in combination with that. Maybe you happen to have some really fast Defiant pieces and you have some kind of fast sci-fi build. Slotting in 2-piece Defiant would actually be huge and can definitely make a massive difference. And then the third OP item set is actually right next to Defiant. Again, a 2-piece item set that you can slot in with stoneskin, which is kind of the point of this video, is gonna be Impulse. And Impulse got recently buffed, and it's a lot better than people actually realize, and it didn't really get a lot of attention like it should have gotten. But at this point I will say that it's one of the best sets in the game for many reasons, but it's also especially good in this meta, regardless of the fact that you can slot it in with 6-piece stoneskin, but also because of it. But so what Impulse does is that it gives you 12% speed, like speed set, and then 12% chance 12% chance to reduce a random skill cooldown by 1 turn. And obviously this is not like refresh, so you don't need to be able to use the skill to proc it, meaning you can just proc it even if you're already locked out, which is super common in this meta, especially against your defense team. Almost everybody is gonna attack you with lockout. And by the way, this is very relevant in tag team arena and live arena as well. This is not just for classic arena, and all of these sets are good for everything, even though I'm kind of talking about this kind of from the perspective of the classic arena meta, which affects everything. But in tag team arena and live arena, people are not gonna use their best teams and it's kind of a little bit different. But in classic arena, people are using their best teams in offense and defense, and it goes like around that. But since it does give you good stats with high speed and also has a good chance to reduce the cooldown of a skill by 1 turn, this is excellent like filler set that you put it as a 2-piece set on one of your champions. Again, you could have multiple of these sets. You could build your fast lockout champion with this instead of perception, or you could have some combination of this speed and perception. But at this point, impulse set is just clearly superior to speed set in every way, and especially super relevant in this meta. Also, I wouldn't just consider this set on tanky champions, because the set effect is super strong. Kind of like with the frostbite and all 3 of these sets, it's not purely about the stats, and you could use all of these 3 sets on any type of build. Well, probably Defiant is mostly for support champions, but it could be even on a fast support champion or accuracy one and so on. But you could even use all of these on nukers, to be fair. But so you could also go for a tanky impulse set, and of course impulse set is very hard to get. I don't have a lot of it, so it is what it is, but you want to pay more attention to it from now on. But you could also build your tanky supports or even nuker. Maybe you can get your nuker in 2-piece, maybe he's not in 4-piece stoneskin, maybe like 4-piece stoneskin and 4-piece lethal. Maybe it's in maybe it's in like 4-piece lethal, and then you have 2-piece impulse and maybe reaction. Maybe you don't have the gear to do stoneskin and you go with that. Since lockout is so popular, the fact that you have a chance to reduce your skill cooldowns can win you battles, and I would consider this build a lot. I mean, you could build it on nukers like I just said, but I would especially consider this on supports, regardless if you build them full speed or not. But obviously it's good on like full speed champions, and you want to look out for items with multiple speed rolls and maybe try to get the 2-piece set on this, maybe on your main speed champion, maybe like Sifi or Armans or Shuchen or whoever you have, a lockout champion. But with this effect, the effect is so good that you want to consider it on support champions too, and I'm really trying to get a good set going on. I really like this helmet, so I'm definitely gonna pair that with something else and put it on one of my supports. Maybe I will actually put it on Angora at some point. We will see. It would be kind of OP if Angora revive gets the cooldown reduced, and then you're able to revive another champion with their cooldowns intact with her revive. That's a super good combination that I have been liking on her a lot lately. I would also say that you do get basically the same effect from a mastery, which probably you're using anyway, Cycle of Magic, but you could proc both of those at the same time, and that could be good enough to win the battle. But yeah, I mean, if you have any other questions about item sets, then hit me up, but I kind of wanted to highlight these basically 3 hidden OP 2-piece item sets that I'm using. I recommend you to use, and they kind of got a lot more relevant, all 3 of them, just recently. None of them were relevant a couple months ago, and now they're suddenly top tier item sets. But I will make another much longer, I mean, probably this video is not gonna be a short one, but I'll make another much longer tier list video going through all of the item sets for PvP and talking about them. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope this helps you in Arena. I was kind of really speaking about the heavily like Plat Arena top, like competing for top 20 and so on, but this is relevant everywhere, so don't be too deterred if that isn't really relevant to you right now and you're trying to like climb in Tag Team Arena or Live Arena or something like that. Maybe you can't farm Impulse set right now, but maybe you can do it later. Anyway, that's it for this video. Have a nice day and see ya.